Thank you, everybody, for joining today. We are so happy to be here. My name is Elena Carroll, and I am the Chief Growth Officer at Upswing. I am very excited as we wrap up this fall's Upswing webinar series. Today's topic, AI in Action, Changing the Game for Academic Advisors, is actually one that we came up with after receiving several requests from our previous webinar attendees, as well as our partners, to do a topic on AI. So here we are today, and we are so excited to have with us a few speakers. Before we begin, though, I did want to just see where all of our attendees are coming from today. So if you are able and willing, please let us know where you're coming from in the chat. I can share that myself, I am coming from Raleigh, North Carolina, and I know we have some other folks from North Carolina as well. So just take a moment, let us know where you're coming from in the chat. While you're doing that, I also wanted to remind you that we will record today's webinar. The recording, as well as a PDF of today's slides, will be shared with you. If you are not able to stay the entire time, or you have colleagues or friends that registered and can't make it, they'll also receive a copy of the recording as well as the PDF. We also want to make sure that today's webinar is as interactive as possible. So please feel free to add any questions in the Q&A, and we'll save some time to address them at the end. I also wanted to make sure that I shared a little bit about Upswing for those of you who are new to us today. Upswing was started 13 years ago by our current CEO and co-founder, Melvin Hines. Melvin grew up in a town in rural South Georgia and then went on to the University of Georgia. From there, Melvin really felt unprepared to be a college student. And this experience really inspired him to go on and found Upswing for students just like him that, get to college and just do not feel ready and are really trying to find a sense of belonging. So, since Upswing was founded, we have made it our mission to support as many non-traditional and historically marginalized students as possible and to help them graduate college. We do this by leveling the playing field for these students and meeting them where they are at to provide support at their moment of need. This support isn't just tutoring or academic support. We want to make sure that students are supported holistically and that we provide academic support via tutoring and assignment review, but also mental health support like teletherapy and peer support. We also help connect students to basic or critical needs. We also provide advising and early alerts. All of these resources are available through our online platform, and we connect students to these resources as well as resources in their community and on their campus through Anna, our SMS virtual assistant. The results of this work is that we're able to help our partners retain on average 78 students per year by increasing student retention by up to 1.849 percentage points. We're really honored to continue that work today. And we're also honored to be here today as a thought leader for student support and retention. And that's why we're bringing this webinar here to you. Today, I am so excited to have three amazing speakers to bring their expertise and the work that they're doing at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. So I have with me today Kenny Ka'aiakamono Kibilan, Raezheen Pascua, and Jolene Muneno. So I am so thankful to have you all here today. We appreciate your time, and I know we're all so very excited to get started and hear your presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then I will let you all bring up your presentation and get started.
Thank you, Lena. All right, just want to make sure, can everyone see our presentation?
Yeah, I can see our slides.
Perfect. And I just want to apologize. I'm coming off being sick, but I'm glad to be here. If I need to repeat myself, feel free to let me know via the comments in the chat. But aloha from Hawaii. Just some little introductions about us a bit more. My name is Kenny Kakmanu. As Elena said, I'm an academic advisor in the College of Natural Science at University of Hawaii at Manoa. I focus mostly on computer science students, and I'll pass it to Raezheen.
Aloha, everyone. My name is Raezheen Pascua. I'm an academic advisor within our Manoa Advising Center. So, our primary focus is helping exploratory students find majors that best align with their interests, skills, and their abilities within the UH system. And then I'll pass it to Jolene.
Aloha, my name is Jolene Muneno. I'm an academic advisor with the College of Education at the University of Hawaii at Mānoa. Thank you so much for being here. I look forward to sharing with you and learning from you as well. A little bit about me. I started my deep dive into AI when ChatGPT was released, like, I think it was 3 years ago. I can't believe it's only been a few years. And since then, I became really fascinated by, this shiny new toy that we have, this tool, and hosted some AI lunches, shared about AI and how advisors use it through conferences with Kenny and Ray, and gave some additional presentations as well. So very happy to be here. We're going to go on to the next slide and cover our learning objectives for today. So we are going to start by explaining what artificial intelligence or AI is and what makes generative AI unique. We will also be sharing the benefits, limitations, and ethical considerations of using AI in our own work. And we will learn about how academic advisors are using AI in their work as well. And then lastly, we hope that you will share how you are using AI in your work so we can learn from each other.
Thank you, Jolene. And I'll start off with the first part. So, what is artificial intelligence and what is generative AI? Um, I'm not going to read off the slides. I'll do a little summarization, but you'll definitely have the slides afterwards. Basically, AI is a machine that simulates human intelligence. They can do learning, they can do reasoning, they can do self-corrections. Basically, things that us humans can do in a daily. What is generative AI? Generative AI is a type of AI that creates new content, whether it's image, story, video. The song that we had in the beginning, our intro song, was actually created through generative AI that Beijing actually made for us today using one of the applications that are available. In regards to different types of artificial intelligence, scholars could differ the different amount of types, but we're going to divide them into four different types, and I'll provide some examples of each one. And this is just to give us a bit of a context of what AI is. So the first one, very more primitive reactive machines. These are AIs that don't really have memory. Um, so they don't rely on like past experiences. They're more guided with the present or the future. I usually tell people that reactive machines, very active machine AI, a good example is like security cameras. So they can detect people or like crosswalks, for example. Those are good examples of reactive machines. Limited memory, these are AIs that have some sort of memory, but not a whole lot. They can use memory from the past. Some good examples that I usually mention in regards to limited memory AI is, for example, if you go on like Netflix or YouTube, they'll have a list of like suggested shows for you to watch, things like that, and that's based on like things that you've watched previously. That is an example of like limited memory AI. Um, the other two, mind theories and self-awareness, these are a little bit more advanced. I know Jolene mentioned a little bit about ChatGPT. I would say that ChatGPT is more in between like limited AI going into mind theory AI, like that little transition period would be where ChatGPT is. Mind theory AI basically acknowledge feelings and thoughts, and they modify their interactions in regards to that. A good example might be an app that requires your personalization, like a AI assistant, or like even Duolingo for people who use Duolingo. It really uses your experience, your feelings, and what you want to do in order to create um an app that's set for you. And then lastly, self-awareness AI. Basically, they can do everything that humans can do, thinking, problem solving, decision making, those kind of things. Anything learning, reasoning related. I would say a good example is like if you watch Futurama and you see these robots, basically that's like self-awareness AIs. But yeah, so that's a little bit of information about the types of AI, what AI is, and what generative AI is defined as. I'm gonna pass it to Jolene again.
Thank you, Kenny, for that explanation. So now we'd like to take a Zoom poll. Elena, can you pull up the poll, please? So you should see a little pop-up, and we would like to know when it comes to use generative AI like ChatGPT um, in your work, where are you right now? The first option is you have never used AI, you don't plan to anytime soon. Second option is curious, you heard about it, you're interested, but maybe you haven't tried it yet. Third is testing it out. You've used AI tools a few times, you're still learning what works for you. Or the fourth is you're all in, you regularly use generative AI in your own work, maybe through emails, brainstorming, or other tasks. Please go ahead and choose your option, and then we'll take a look at the results. And Elena, whenever you're ready to share the results, we're ready. Awesome. Thank you. Can everybody see that on your end? Oh, so we have the majority of people, 41%, are testing it out. You've used AI just maybe a few times, just seeing what works out for you. Then 36% are all in, that you're regularly using it, 18% are curious, and 5% have never used it. We have a good mix. Sounds like we're going to have a good discussion later on. Thank you so much for sharing. It's really interesting to see how that changes over the years, and we're seeing more and more people adopting generative AI. All right, we'll move on.
So for our next section, we're going to be discussing the benefits, limitations, and ethical considerations of using AI and generative AI specifically in academic advising. So as you can see, starting with our benefits for AI, first, it can help with your caseload support. So it helps us manage our large student loads and kind of acts like a virtual assistant. As we go on with our personal presentations from work, you can see exactly how we use it to help manage our caseload specifically. Next, it's also a benefit that we can identify at-risk students and supports proactive interventions for those students. Again, we have some insights of what technology that we utilize. And then I know as well through Upswing, as it was mentioned, they can also help technology through that data as well too for identifying students. Next, it's supporting us with outreach and planning so it can streamline communication, research, and strategic planning. When it comes to streamlining communication, that can be in regards to like our social media posts, for example, or even our email communications with students and how we modify those communications so that way it's more student friendly. Next, it's that personalized student experience. So it does support multilingual needs and adapts to students' preferences. So I have heard of even students within my advising situations where they use it to help support them in their second language learning, where they have kind of someone, well, someone I should say, practicing with them with enunciation or maybe figuring out what is that translated word. And then lastly, engagement and equity. So it enhances interactions and help reduces unintentional biases, right? Because as we know, since it doesn't have that human aspect, unless depending on how you insert your prompt, it can like eliminate that bias and just give you the overall universal response. Then I'll pass it over to Jolene, who'll cover the limitations.
Thank you. So there are limitations and ethical considerations when using AI. The first thing I'd like to highlight is just that there is bias. Um, Generative AI is trained on broad data, and that can be biased. So it's important for us as users to look at the AI outputs with discernment, because depending on the data that it's trained on, depending on the AI trainers themselves who might unintentionally bring in bias, the AI might reinforce that bias in its output to us. The second one is that we always need to follow FERPA and university guidelines, college guidelines. That means protecting student data and being cautious about what we share with AI tools. Because for some AI tools, we might not know what happens to that information that we share with it and whether it might be shared with others. And we don't know all the time what path it takes to arrive at its output. So for us as users, it just means doing our research into the tools that we do use and proceeding with caution if the data sharing policy is not clear. Then the third thing is that we shouldn't blindly trust AI. It's a tool, it's not a decision maker, and it's not 100% accurate all the time. You might have heard of the term hallucinations. These are incorrect or misleading results that AI models may generate. And you may also have noticed that AI can sound really confident even when it's wrong. An example of a hallucination is that I asked a generative AI tool what courses I should take as a freshman elementary ed major at UH Manoa. And it did recommend courses to me, but the problem was those courses did not exist. They were made up, but it even cited links. But if you clicked on those links, it, did not support the responses that it gave me. So for us as users and also as educators, it's really important that we teach students critical thinking and fact-checking skills. If we notice that students are using AI incorrectly or even unethically, it's also a good opportunity for us to talk with them about that and help them learn from that experience. So that's the third one. The fourth one is that AI tools do take funding, training, and staff support many times to be used effectively. So it's not always a smooth or fast process to adopt new technology. And then lastly, AI um, should support and not replace us as educators or as advisors. At the end of the day, it's the human connection that is at the heart of our work. So AI is to be used, as I mentioned, as a tool, but not a replacement. AI is becoming really good at relationship building. You might have heard about that or experienced that yourself. But as an advisor, I know that I'm also a cheerleader, I'm a mentor, I have empathy and I have emotions that a machine is not able to have. And so that makes my relationship with students more meaningful. All right. So next, in this next section, we are going to share how we each use AI in our own work as academic advisors. And I'm going to be starting this section, and I have to share that among the three of us, I am the least tech savvy. I've always been the last in my friend group to adopt new technology. I was the last person to ditch my flip phone. I was made fun of it for years. So I do know what it feels like to be hesitant or confused or even fearful of new technology. So for those people who said that you were AI newbies, I want to share how one way that you can dip your toes into these AI waters by using AI to help you write emails to students. And specifically, I'm going to talk about ChatGPT because that's the one that I use, but you can use other similar tools. The first thing I want to address is why should we even use tools like ChatGPT to help us write emails? So there are many benefits, such as the fact that it can make our emails shorter and more concise. It can also improve the clarity and the tone of our emails and help us turn a long, maybe one large paragraph into more digestible sections by helping with formatting. We all know that students tend to scan emails. So changing these things and improving on them can make a difference in whether students read or ignore our emails. It can also help us customize messages to different student groups, different audiences, and just in general, just help us get the ball rolling, helping with writer's block, starting an email. Um, and then the ways that I use it is to write large, like mass emails, so emails to different student groups with registration reminders, graduation reminders, workshop invites, and start or end of the semester messages. Okay, next slide. So I'm going to take you step by step to show you how I use ChatGPT. And again, this is for newbies. I put the newbie badge up there, but Kenny and Ray will talk about more advanced ways that you can use it. Um, so what I did is I pulled up ChatGPT on my browser, and you'll see a window, and it's gonna, this is where you can enter your prompt. And this is what you would like ChatGPT. It's like instructions for ChatGPT. And I just kind of brain dumped in here. I said, help me write a friendly email to undergraduate students majoring in KRS-HES, that's kinesiology and rehabilitation science, health and exercise science, at the University of Hawaii in the College of Education who are close to graduating. The email should include reminders that number one, they need a minimum Manoa GPA of 2.5 to graduate. Number two, they need a C minus or higher grades in their major courses. Number three, they can't have incomplete grades to graduate. It should remind students that it's their responsibility to check their degree progress in STAR Academic Essentials. That's our online portal. And then once they're registered for their final required courses, they need to petition to graduate in STAR GPS. Now, even just reading that is just too much for my brain to handle. So I asked ChatGPT to help me put this in a more easily digestible email format. And on the next slide, I'm going to show you what a typical email might look like without using ChatGPT. It's formal. It is not especially friendly. It's very word heavy, and maybe some students will just kind of look at it and not really read it too carefully. And then if we look at the next slide, this is what ChatGPT produced for me. So in the subject line, you can see it put a graduation cap emoji. It says important graduation reminders. And then it starts with Aloha Keras students, you're getting close to the finish line. Congratulations. As you prepare for graduation, here are some important reminders to help keep you on track. And then it divided those reminders into three sections marked by emojis. It used bullet points and it used bold type to highlight the key points so that students can easily pick those out. And then at the end, it ends with, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We are cheering you on as you approach this exciting milestone. So I would say this is an improvement over the previous slide because it's easier for students to find key information. It's more friendly and it's just better organized. Now, we're not done yet. If we go to the next slide. We always want to refine our emails and read through them and proofread ourselves. So, one way that we can refine emails is we can use additional prompts. We can enter more prompts into ChatGPT. For example, you can ask it to adjust the tone of your email to better cater to the audience that you are addressing. You can ask it to make it sound more friendly or firm or formal or excited. You can also ask it to make your email more concise, such as make it shorter without losing important information. And lastly, you can ask it to customize your message for student groups. For example, write a version for students who haven't responded to earlier reminders. So let's move on to the next slide, and I'm going to show you how I did that. I actually combined all three into one prompt. I said, write a version for students who haven't responded to earlier reminders. It should sound positive but firm, make it shorter without losing important information. And on the next slide, this is a reminder of what it looked like before. And then on the next slide, we'll see what it produced after. You can see that it replaced the graduation cap emoji in the subject line with something more urgent, like a siren symbol. And then it just it cut out all the extra words and just shares the key information, still keeping it in 3 sections in bold. And it says, if you're planning to graduate soon, haven't taken action yet, now is the time. And at the end, it says, please don't delay. Graduation depends on you taking these steps. So I would say that this is definitely answering the prompt well. Let's move on. And I'm going to share a few other ways that you can refine your emails with ChatGPT prompts. The first is you can ask it to add structure. If you're not happy with the structure, you can ask it to use bullet points and headers to organize your key points. You can also ask it to clarify your message. For example, edit the first paragraph to make it clear that students must apply by Friday. You can ask it to check grammar and spelling, such as fix any grammar issues and typos. And lastly, you can ask it to create a visually formatted version, such as make a version with icons, colors, and layout for a flyer. And I wanted to demonstrate this last one for you. So on the next slide, you can see my prompt at the top, turn the graduation requirement section into a visual. And you can see the next, yeah, here we are. You can see this is what it looked like before, and that section bracketed that the arrow is pointing to, that's the section I'm referring to. So I'm asking it to turn that section into a visual. And on the next slide, this is what the output was. So it gave me 2 visuals. The first one is a table, and then the second one, excuse me, is like a more of a poster format. So this is a great thing. You can insert it into flyers or share it within your emails. It's a great tool to use. Lastly, I just want to also say that after refining my emails using prompts, I always review the output again. I proofread it. I like to add a personal touch as well. So I'll insert, my sense of humor or something Hawaii specific. I'll change up the emoji sometimes. I'll reword sections. It's up to you how you want to put your stamp on it. But yeah, just reiterating that, we don't just blindly trust it. We always proofread, and I like to put my mark on it as well. So if you're new to generative AI, I hope this gave you some ideas on how to use it. Thank you for listening to my section. I'm going to now pass it on to Kenny.
Thank you, Jolene. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about what I use AI for. I have two examples that I'm gonna provide. One is our AI chatbot, basically like my own assistant that helps me be a really good advisor. And the next one is I have a lot of students that struggle with writing. I don't know why. I feel like a lot of computer science students don't like to write. So I'm talking about Elicit AI and how to find like information about articles, things like that. But just to start off, at the University of Manoa, we have what's called Bo. Bo is an AI chatbot. Um, It's basically a way for us to check in our students throughout the school years. We have different prompts to like check on them. Some of the prompts are like academic, engagement, and well-being, just to see how they're doing. And it really just depends if the student use it. So I always encourage my students, if you can talk back to Bo, if you can answer Bo, that would be great. I know Upswing has their own version of a AI chatbot that is also really useful. Um, but yeah, it really helps me to provide that holistic advising, especially for me who has around 700 students. And it's just me as the full-time advisor. I have two other GAs, so we do have a big caseload. Um, but next slide, basically the way we use it is that we create like a communication plan that we reach out to students with, just asking how they're doing this semester. And again, it's academics, well-being, financial, things like that. And what the cool part is that with Bo, the AI bot, the assistant, it can also help link students to resources. So if they need tutoring help, it'll send them a message to a link for tutoring, for example. Um, the cool part too is in the back end, I get to see as well the data that's collected from this. And as Jolene mentioned, of course, discerning is very important, trying to figure out what this means. Because in my personal experience too, being working with computer science students, I've noticed a lot of them want to try quote unquote break the bot or try to test the bot. So sometimes they would write things that they didn't really mean. So definitely discerning that is very important. So in the back end, we get to look at like the different risk factors for each student depending on the responses and in addition to that, we also get to see what the actual conversation was. That way we can tell, hey, is this something that I, as an advisor, should, reach out to sit more about, discuss more about? Is there this coordination of care that I need to do in order to help the student? Um, in my opinion, since I use Bo, I feel like it helped me to reach out more people, more students than before. So that's one of the reasons why I do like using this AI tool. I would say in the beginning it was hard because it was something new, so I wasn't totally familiar with everything. But once I got a good grasp of how to use it and how to help students, it really helped me reach out more people. Um, and it really helped me be more of a holistic advisor that just not only focus on academics, but whatever else they need to be a successful student, which is, again, engagement, if it's financial, if it's tutoring, those kind of things as well. So that's Bo. The other one I want to mention was Elicit AI. I usually use this AI as a teaching tool for my students who have hard times trying to find papers for to cite or to write an essay. The way this AI works for you folks who are not familiar with it is that you can put a prompt and it'll help you find papers that talk about that topic and discuss about that topic, whatever it is. Um, let's say AI, the free version though, doesn't have full access to papers, but I usually tell students that, hey, our library does. So feel free to look at the reference that Illicit AI provided to you and check out those papers, see what those topics are about, see if it's relatable to the prompt that you have to write about. So yeah, let's say AI is a good starting point for my students to find writing material, evidence based on assignments that they need to do. And that's how I usually use let's say AI when I'm talking to my students. But yeah, so those are two things that I use that are AI related in my day-to-day work. I'm gonna pass it on to Ray to share what she has to say and how she uses AI in her daily work.
Perfect. Thank you, Kenny. So when it comes to my usage of I use kind of like a layering technique. So it's where you're going to use two different AI platforms to kind of like work together. Actually, that's how the song was created at the beginning when you all were logging in. I was able to upload our presentation to ChatGPT and then ask it to create a prompt for Sono so that way I had a good intro song essentially for our presentation. From there, of course, it reviewed the presentation, gave the simple prompt, and then I uploaded that prompt into Sono and it created the song. So how that's now used or applied, I should say, to advising specifically is that I utilize the Zoom AI companion feature in ChatGPT. Although more recently, I've been actually exploring with Google Gemini since that's what our university has access to. But essentially, you can turn on your Zoom AI companion features. I prefer to do this after the check-in process, and that's just due to how data, like protected data, is defined within our institution. So since I like to ask the students what their student email address is, that is considered a restricted low risk protected data. So that's why, since I know that information gets collected and stored a little bit inside of the Zoom AI feature, I turn it on after I check them in so that information is still protected for the student and they're still safe, essentially, and their information is safe to be in compliance. But um, if you click over once, Kenny, so you'll see the first image here. This is what it generates at the end of your Zoom appointment with a student. It gives you a nice little summary of what was discussed and then kind of like what were the main points of discussion. Inside of this feature for Zoom, it is editable, so you can go through, make little edits, because sometimes it does, for example, put the incorrect spelling for a student's name, or sometimes depending on the institution's like different building names, it can also misspell that. So of course I go through and then I clean all of that up. So that way, before I put it into ChatGPT, I don't have to worry about rechecking those edits. Once I make those edits inside of Zoom I copy the entire thing into ChatGPT. And then if you click forward for the next image inside of my ChatGPT, you're actually able to create project areas and then create instructions within those project areas. So for my academic advising project area, you can see here that I have that it needs to remove all bullet points because our advising platform does not acknowledge bullet points, so that has to be removed. I also request that it's formatted in paragraph format, replace Raezheen with I pronoun, or not pronouns, first person language, use gender neutral pronouns, and then limit the advising notes to 1,500 characters, again, because that's how our platform works. And using those instructions, if you click forward, and then uploading your Zoom AI companion summary, this is what gets generated from ChatGPT in itself, using the actual instructions that I have. So you'll see now that my note formats, it has the dates at the top. It lists what that student currently is listed in, but then what their intended plan is, since I work with exploratory students specifically. So these are students that aren't formally declared in a pathway, but they're trying to decide what way they want to declare. And then, of course, I make it really easy for students when they come back into their notes to see what classes we discuss and we plan for them for the upcoming semester. And then it gives that really simple summarized version compared to like that multiple paragraph version that you saw earlier. And then this is where you can also remove the bias that I was referring to earlier underneath benefits, because right, depending on how an individual reads their notes, some students don't necessarily like seeing like, oh, I express interest or I seem interested in this major. They just want to, because, right, like in their mindset, that is going to be their major once they finish those admissions requirements. Well, then for myself, because depending on how the wording is, that's where I could put like seemed or expressed interest. And little things like that, right? Again, depending on the individual, can cause some like friction. And then with our note, though, using the AI, it kind of removes all of those feeling type of words. So you don't have to worry about that happening essentially for students. And so now moving forward, so that's just a brief example of how you can use AI and it helps with our caseload management. So now we want to open up the floor to engage you all in a dialogue. So if you can put in the chat Have you ever used generative AI in your work and what happened? And then if you haven't used generative AI in your work before, what's one part of your work that you feel comfortable using it for and one part you wouldn't use it for? I'll be monitoring the chat and we'll give just like 2 minutes for this discussion. I see that one person already mentioned earlier that they use AI very similar to one of our presenters. I'm assuming Kenny, because they said they also call it their assistant. Perfect. Okay, so someone said she hasn't used it before in her work. Someone else says they regularly use it for emails, creating planning documents, or outreach communication. So very similar to what Jolene uses it for as well. And then I also use it that way too. Right, it helps save time, especially with our busy work days, kind of help simplify that. Drafting emails, workshop ideas. Yep, I always refer to it as my brainstorm buddy. Um, I want to begin using it to record Zoom advising appointments. Yes, I absolutely love the way it uses Zoom AI companion to record those appointments. And it's even great for us as advisors because it does create like a next step. So say like if you promise a resource to a student and you go back and you're reviewing that Zoom AI, you can see it and it's like, oh, okay, yes, let me make sure I include that then in a separate follow-up. Someone else mentioned they use Perplexity. Ooh, I haven't used Perplexity. I've heard it's very good, just like Elicit though too. Awesome. I use it to digest content, prepare for preliminary presentations. Yep, absolutely. Right. Kind of like that practice. Kind of seeing like what is the brief outline, key topics you need to make sure you highlight. Perfect. Awesome. So it seems like we have like a wide use or like wide range of usage of AI. Some very similar, some very different from one another. I see that someone else mentioned like career research too. So that's awesome. I used it previously I had a section saying how I use it to like reflect about where I'm at with my career. So saying like, oh, this is my advising philosophy. This is some of the activities I'm doing. How do these two things like align? And then maybe how, and then using my brainstorm buddy, help me brainstorm other ways that I can help me meet my advising philosophy. Perfect. Okay, so we'll move forward. And I'll pass it over to Jolene to discuss the resources available.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. So on this next slide, we've shared some links to resources where you can learn more about AI, try it out yourself. The first one is something that that I did. It's a Coursera certification, like a Google career certificate. The one I did was the AI Essentials. This one links to the UH um, the UH website for it, but perhaps your university has access to that as well. Khan Academy, uh, if you're curious about UH Manoa's AI recommendations, you can click on that third link. We have links to learn more about generative AI, Google Gemini, and Notebook, AI resources for teaching and learning. We have the link to the Suno music generator that Ray used to create the song that was in our intro, uh, Elicit, and then Perplexity as well.
So, in summary, the session explored artificial intelligence, specifically generative AI, and how it's reshaping academic advising. So, today we covered topics focusing on defining AI and generative AI, the benefits and ethical considerations of AI in advising, and then the three of us provided real life examples of how we use AI in our daily work. So from our presentation today, we hope you walk away with understanding how you can use AI to streamline your case management load, identify at-risk students, and then enhance student outreach. Also, walking away, understand the ethical use regarding data privacy, cultural awareness, and advisor oversight. And then lastly, AI supporting us and not replacing us as advisors or even just higher education practitioners. So looking ahead, this is now hopefully going to encourage you all to look for resources that can help you in your professional development for AI, but also maybe encourage you to start dipping your toes into AI if you haven't already, or maybe get to the point where you're layering AI, or to a point where, like Kenny, where you're teaching students how to properly use AI for their assignments. So mahalo nui loa for attending today and listening to our presentation. Of course, we have our information on the screen. It's my understanding these slides will be shared out, but we want to open up the floor to any questions that you all might have. If you can utilize the Q&A feature of the webinar, that would be great, and then we'll grab your questions from there.
Wonderful. Well, while we wait for folks to put questions in the Q&A, I actually had a question for you all, maybe to just kind of kick off the Q&A section. I was curious about maybe what are some ways that you all have helped your staff and colleagues become more comfortable and confident in using AI in their work?
That's a great question. Um, Definitely for me, I always just openly share with my colleagues when I use platforms like ChatGPT or Gemini to create like the email communications when they review it. And I found just like simple things like that by showing like how you're utilizing it. In this past year, like other members of my staff have like slowly started utilizing it as well. Um, I think it kind of eliminates some pressure of like diving into this like new technology when they see that there's other people that's utilizing it too.
Yeah, I do the same. I'm very transparent with my coworkers that when I use ChatGPT or other tools, and then I explain to them why I'm using it. For example, we just finished mandatory advising season, and we sent out mandatory advising emails and reminder emails to students. So I use ChatGPT to help me craft some engaging emails that students hopefully, won't ignore like they have in the past. And I showed my coworkers the before and the after, and we saw just the real data. We just collected the real data, and we saw that students were reading their emails more. They were booking with us earlier, appointments. So I think just the data speaks for itself as well. So now others in my office are more curious about using it.
I work by myself, which is like I don't have a lot of coworkers that are also in advising, but I have a lot of professors that are AI professors or faculty. So I feel like I learn more from them than they learn from me. But yeah, very transparent. We just talk story about it, get some coffee, or I even ask them like, hey, where's the new things that I should be doing? And a lot of times they have good ideas. But yeah, similar to what Ray and Jolene said.
I'll also mention that um, one thing that would be a great idea, maybe you folks do it already, is to have just some casual talks, like maybe arrange like a casual lunch talk where advisors or other people in your profession can get together and just talk about your feelings of about generative AI, talk about how you use it in your own work. I did that myself a few years ago when ChatGPT was first introduced. I felt like I had so many emotions, so many mixed feelings about AI, and I just wanted to talk to other people and process those feelings and learn from them. So I hosted a AI lunch talk for our campus's advisors, and that really helped me. Um, Make connections with people who have similar interests as me, and also make connections with people who are hesitant about AI so that they felt less hesitant after that talk to try it out.
And then I did get one question in the chat. Someone asked, how do you encourage students to cite AI? That's a great question. So outside of advising, I teach a course called UNIV 240, Your Academic Journey. And in that course, it's a writing intensive class. So they have to do a lot of reflection, but they also do research on their major and careers of interest. And then just this semester, I created a guide on like how to use AI, and I encouraged them like you're more than welcome to use AI to help you like brainstorm, maybe start asking like what does a day in the life of a computer scientist look like, for example. But then if you're going to use that information inside of your final research paper, then you do need to cite it. I believe I also it was Purdue OWL and think the site APA citation that has information on how to properly cite like ChatGPT. So then I just made that available as a resource for students, so they can follow the APA seventh generation citation formatting. Um, I do find it's interesting at this point with students because, of course, we know they're using AI to a certain extent, but they're not, at least in my experience so far, haven't like fully like admitted to how they're using AI. So I think that's been like the more challenging area of like trying to get students to admit like, yes, I'm using it, and then trying to get them to actually have the discussion of how they're using it, and letting them know like I'm not trying to like scold you in any way, but like we need to make sure you're using this like ethically moving forward, because you can't just be like, hey, ChatGPT, write a whole paper on like a college experience of going to a fair. Like no, you need to actually go to the fair and participate. So I think that's just been like the trickier part is just getting them to admit that they're using it so that it then can be cited properly.
That's great. Thank you. I also see that we have a question in the chat. Someone is asking any tips on how one could use AI for an in-person meeting? Notes.
So I know from a colleague of mine, so I haven't used it personally this way, but she likes to use Notebook. Is it the LM, if I remember correctly, for the platform? But it has a ability that it can record while you're in the meeting. So it can capture what's being said, if you're like sitting in an in-person meeting. And she has found that to be very useful. Of course, I won't over disclose like some of like why she utilizes that platform. But essentially she has said it's been a great resource to help support her, so that way she is like properly capturing the information that is being disclosed there. And then I know with the one I did utilize in Google Docs, you can do the same thing that you can have it transcribe while you're in the meeting. It's not going to be as clean as the notebook, where it's going to like kind of separate it out from my understanding. It's just going to kind of capture everything. But then again, using that layer technique, because I did it to interview a student, I was able then to just take the entire transcript, upload it into ChatGPT, and then ask for the key insights. So I'd say those are kind of like two platforms that you can use like live in person. And I see Kenny is unmuted too.
I was gonna say another platform. Sometimes I use like Otter AI and it collects it for me, and the AI just like summarizes it for me as well. So I use Otter AI if it needs to be an in-person meeting. But there's a lot. Ray mentioned some too. I think there's a lot of tools that you could use for in-person meeting notes.
And it looks like they're confirming you said Otter, right? So Otter AI?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Perfect. Thank you. All right. Any other questions? Please feel free to type them in the chat or the Q&A. We can probably take one more. All All right. So, Kenny, if I can go ahead and share my screen, I'll close us out here. Perfect. Thank you. All right, wonderful. Well, thank you again for sharing your expertise as well as your experience today with AI. Before we go, I did want to make sure that I mention Upswing's AI support solution. You all mentioned it today, and that is Anna. So Anna is Upswing's virtual SMS assistance, which provides proactive support for students to give them information and reminders throughout the semester. We really like to think of Anna as more than just a chatbot. It really is AI and human driven, with an entire team that is sitting behind Anna, that are ready to answer student questions. It also helps provide empathy and encouragement to students throughout the semester. And I think, for the admins that are kind of working behind it, it helps reduce admin time and also helps increase graduation rates by over 13%. So if any of you are looking for a solution for that, we'd love to speak to you about how Anna could help you and your students. But I really do want to just thank everyone for their time here today. I know that it's a very busy time of the semester, and we had such great audience participation. And again, just thank you to Kenny and Raezheen and Jolene. You all are wonderful. And I know that I actually got some very practical tips that I'm going to use in my AI use as well. So really appreciate your time. This is our last webinar of the semester. We'll be back with more webinars in the spring, probably starting in January. So be on the lookout for your emails with the recording from today's webinar, but also news of upcoming webinars that everyone here can attend. So I hope you all have a wonderful day and a wonderful holiday season. We appreciate you and have a great day. Take care.